how's it going, YouTube? Today is quite a change. I'm no longer using Frostblades. I do think Frostblades is still probably one of the best skills in the game, but I just wanted to try out something a little different that has maybe potentially more potential than Frostblades. Now, what I'm using is an old school favorite, Kinetic Blast and Power Siphon. I know a lot of people like playing Wanders, and I kind of wanted to try to make a Wander that had like Int-Stacking level DPS, maybe not Int-Stacking level survivability, but hey, you can't have it all, right? Without having to spend like 10s or 20s of mirror. Like overall, I put this character together for around like less than 1 mirror for sure. Not really sure how much exactly. It's mainly because the cluster jewels are pretty cheap, and you can see the tree right there. It's kind of like a reverse aura stacker. And yeah, build clears pretty fast. You can see right here, it's pretty good. Single target is actually surprisingly good for the gear level it currently has. I have not fully invested into it yet. Now here I die because having Hydra Spear on Arcanist brand, Hydra Spear actually eats up a lot of the chunks of the hits. So that's why the damage seems pretty bad. So I died here, but I was able to switch it out. But you can see even with the Hydra Spear thing, it still does a lot of damage for Elemental Equilibrium and Enfeeble map. And I was able to like almost one phase Maven and one-shot her. And I was also able to kill Awakener without any problems. So with super scuffed gear, it performs. And I do think it has some potential. It does carry a lot of the same principles as the Frostblades build, in that you try to make a shaped wand and you try to go all shaped and use Cult of Fire with Secrets of Suffering. And at the moment, Secrets of Suffering is just incredibly broken, and I do think that it deserves to be nerfed, but that is another discussion altogether. So I'm going to go straight into the build and gear overview, then I'm going to go talk about why this build does so much damage, and I'm going to showcase some quick highlights of the build. And this is all very preliminary, so don't go rush out and try to build. But I know a lot of people love Wanders, and I just wanted to do my own take on it and beat out the Int-Stacking Wanders out there. So this is the pop I'm currently looking at. As you can see, its damage is around 70 mil. And it could be a lot higher. I'm using items that I'm not currently using, but this is pretty much an endgame pob. And the life is kind of low because a lot of these jewels I didn't put on percent life. And it's just some resist, so you'll probably lose out on a bit of damage, but you'll probably have around 5k life. Now, my current gear in the game, I have around 5k, and you can see well, I have one Call of the Brotherhood and one non-Call of the Brotherhood, and that's pretty much because I couldn't afford another shaped Call of the Brotherhood. And it turns out the shaped Call of the Brotherhood is around like 15x or so. You can try to trash to treasure it. It is around 4x an attempt, and I think it's like a 1 in 4 or so. So basically, weapon, we have this behemoth. I bought this as T2, T4, T1, so it's Tyrannical Champions Flaring. Now, this wand might seem insane and pretty hard to get, but it's actually a lot easier to get triple like Fizz wands this time around because of Rog, because anytime you see Rog with a wand of Hybrid Fizz, Flat Fizz, and Fizz percent, you can pretty much just depend on Rog to upgrade tiers. So if you look on PoE Trade, there's actually quite an abundance of Tyrannical Flaring or Merciless Flaring wands that would normally never exist in any league. And this is with the league being like completely dead, right? So I bought this wand base for 20x, I think. And then after that, I did the thing where I Warlord exalted it or Crusader exalted it to give it an influence. And then I crafted on prefixes cannot be changed. And then I went to town until I got Shaper influence, Reforge influence. And then after that, I did prefixes cannot be changed and Reforged speed, or not Reforged speed, Veiled Chaos Orb to get crit chance quality, and then I crafted on attack speed. Now the reason I did this method of crafting rather than the other one is because trying to do prefixes cannot be changed and Reforged speed is very, very hard to get attack speed. Wands have a lot of rolls on it, which is why wands are notoriously difficult to roll. So wands have cast speed, it has Socketed gems have faster casting if it's a shaper wand. It also has projectile speed. So the mod pool is incredibly diluted. So trying to get T1 attack speed is incredibly hard. So that's why I settled for just going with Veiled Chaos Orbs, and I think it was the better option. I did craft this Blizzard Crown. It's something I made for the Frostblades character, but I'm also using it on this character. So this helm is pretty good. It doesn't have +2 proj. I do think overall you probably want to get +2 proj, although Berserk effect is also extremely nice, and it comes out to be around the same DPS. I did choose this enchant because it was a lot more affordable than +2 power siphon, and +2 power siphon projectiles just did not exist, so I would probably have to go hire someone to run lab for me. Now, this helm, I awakened orb together. Nearby enemies take 9% increased elemental damage, which is Maven, and then I awakened orb crit multi. So I was able to do that. I got dexterity actually, which actually ended up being pretty good. I do have a lot of dex with this variant though. And then I just crafted on life for now, and I will try to get a better roll on it, but for now it's not too bad. Ideally, you want Fizz taken as fire as the other mod, so you could do suffixes cannot be changed, reforged fire to get that mod, and it would not be too bad. So I'm using the same amulet. The only difference is I decided to anoint Wand Slinger. Wand Slinger is actually incredibly hard to beat because of all the spell damage you get. Well, you only get 35% spell damage, right? So I'm actually not sure how good Wand Slinger is. But usually a lot of people use Crown of Eyes too instead. So if I don't get that much spell damage, this anoint is probably not that great. But at worst, it's around 25 plus 35%, which is what, 60% spell damage. And then 5%, 60% attack damage and 5% attack speed, making it a pretty hard node to overcome, so that's why I chose it. Now, the rings, I have a shape Call of the Brotherhood, and then I have my other ring that I'm using to fix some accuracy issues. Without this ring's accuracy, my accuracy is only at 96%, so this ring is actually pretty important for now. And I will probably have to run the Ice Golem if I lose the ring, right? So if I have the Ice Golem on, I get what? Oh, it only gets increased percent accuracy. It's at 99%. So even without the ring, I should be fine. So this will eventually be a shape Call of the Brotherhood. Now this is the same belt I use, just a shape Stygian, and the boots are life, tailwind effect, cannot be frozen, cannot be chilled. So it's all not too crazy. And I bought this shield for 60 chaos. It's pretty much just attack speed with life and some resist, and it allows me to fill out my resist. So with this ring, I'm actually pretty high on cold res, and I need to fix my fire res, so I need to get a shield with life and fire res instead. So I could choose the dual wield wands, but dual wielding wands is generally not very good, and I need a movement skill and shield charge, so that's why I'm using the shield. And now the gloves is kind of a hot point of contention. A lot of people... So the gloves are kind of hard to make. You can get gloves with faster attacks, faster projectiles, and also slower projectiles and socketed attacks have percent multi. Now it's very, very hard to craft, but we don't need int. So that's one thing. And you can even use an essence of insanity to get percent more attack speed. So overall, you can get a lot of attack speed on your kinetic blast. So this is where you put a clear skill. And I'm using anomalous kinetic blast for 2 additional pierce. So Pierce is extremely good on KB when you're trying to clear. And I have Inspiration right now. This should honestly be Cold to Fire. GMP, it should be Awakened GMP, but I'm too poor. And then we have Wed. So once we get the other Call of the Brotherhood, I'll probably use Cold to Fire instead of Inspiration. And then that should be okay, right? So this gloves can have life on it. So you can see I can still have 5k life on this build and still be relatively tanky. The main thing you lose out on this compared to Frostblades is the life gain on hit from the claws. So that probably means I have to go back to using Vitality Vitality Watcher's Eye, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I will lose out on some damage from the flat cold, but it should be okay. Most of our damage does come from our wand at the moment. And let's see, can this wand be divine at all? I mean, the wand is pretty well rolled, so mainly it is just... I mean, I don't think the wand can get that much better rolled. So basically, gear mostly the same. I did have to craft a new helmet, a new shield, and new gloves, and that's pretty much it. I am starting to use this ward flask. This ward flask is pretty much enduring composure. When you press the flask, it gives you an endurance charge every second, and then this allows you to use like Immortal Call, cast when damage taken. And it's pretty strong. It does use a lot of charges, but I do find it to be up a lot during mapping. So now we can go to the tree, and yeah, the tree a lot of people make fun of, but I do believe we kind of have quite a gem here, and I'm gonna go explain it. So while I was making this build on stream, a lot of people just saw the tree and laughed me out of the building, right? They pretty much said, this is the worst tree I've ever seen. Are you trying to recreate the ore stacker in reverse? Because if you remember the ore stacker tree, it goes up here, it goes here, and here, right? So this way it goes opposite, right? Now, it might look bad, but this is probably the most efficient tree that I could possibly find. Yeah, it kind of looks like I'm making like some weird like image on the tree, but it is what it is. It's relatively efficient because the clusters are extremely important. So I'm using these clusters called Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess, Storm's Hand. So what this means is that I get percent. So this is the same ordeal, right? I'm trying to get attack damage, increase damage while leeching, attack speed while leeching. So while I'm leeching, I get a lot of damage, right? And then this is the magic, what happens, right? Storm's Hand gains us 10% of wand fizz as extra lightning, and it also converts 25% of the wand physical damage to lightning damage. So I'm running 3 or 4 of these clusters, right? So I have 100% conversion to lightning. You can also get the conversion from a Watcher's Eye maybe, and you might also be able to get the conversion from the gloves. Now, all of this is incredibly early on, so that's why I haven't really optimized it at all. I just wanted to give you guys pretty much like some explanation for how the build works and why it's so much damage. And then you also get point blank, which is huge for bossing, because bossing damage matters a lot, right? So we stand next to the boss and we completely destroy it. And here we're pretty much just getting life and Wind Dancer, and this is where we get the Glorious Vanity. This allows us to get a little bit of resist. So if we really need resist and we want a jewel, we would not use these jewel slots. Instead, we would take like 3 points and we get 36% total resist. So it actually helps out a lot. So the tree is actually not as troll as it may seem. And here we get Acro and Phase Acro, which I believe is the cornerstone of any build in terms of getting a tank gear. You could probably drop Phase Acro, but for now, it feels pretty good to have. So just another, so right now I'm not using any medium clusters and I'm pretty much just running a bunch of large clusters, right? So there's another option, which is to get a +1 pierce. I'm pretty sure +1 pierce is, you get 2 additional pierce. So I don't know if there's like a large thread of hope or something that I can hit the 2 additional pierce. I've actually never seen anyone do it, so I'm assuming not. Maybe the large thread of hope would hit it, right? So that could be something we could look for. But that's 1 jewel socket for +2 pierce. It could be worth it. Maybe not, but we'll see. And yeah, that's just 1 jewel socket for that. So I'll test it out and we'll see how that goes. And then up here we get some more life, and this is where I haven't actually updated my character with. So this node right here allows us to get elusive effect, and right now you can't get elusive on this build because we need all shaped items, and a boost you need tailwind no matter what. So your boosts don't have redeemer, and that happens to be the only way to get elusive. So the only other way is to anoint no witnesses. But the problem with that is then we can't anoint Wand Slinger, and Wand Slinger ends up being incredibly good for points. So I changed up the tree a little bit, went this way, and it does seem to be not too bad. You go over here and get the inside route, get some life nodes, some more resist here. And it's all pretty efficient. And I do think, and here's another large cluster, and here's the wand cluster that we all use. And then we have these ones. These ones is probably not that good, right? 1.2%. So I'll probably not take these points. They are not too bad, but probably some more efficiency elsewhere. So a lot of this build will just come down to juggling, and that's a lot with a lot of other builds, right? Is you need to find what's the best way for your points, and POB really allows you to do that. POB does take a lot of the fun part of the guessing work out of the game, because pretty much right now there's a lot of debate whether you should use nodes or have a medium cluster, and in the end I'm pretty sure a medium cluster will win out. These 2 nodes will not beat out a jewel socket, right? A jewel socket will almost undoubtedly beat it out. So that's what we need to consider. So a lot of these nodes that we're taking right now, like these 2 will almost undoubtedly go to a jewel socket. So that's what we need to consider. There are a lot of free jewel sockets for this build right here, and a lot of medium clusters. So a lot of room to grow and a lot of different variants, right? So there's not really one way of doing this build correctly. This is just one way of doing the tree, and this is probably a tree that no one has ever seen, and it's kind of an abomination at that. Like if you look at a tree like that, you probably think this guy is trying to like fake PoE Ninja DPS, but in reality the DPS is extremely high on PoE Ninja. However, it won't show as high as you think it would because PoE Ninja does not calculate brittle really well, and without brittle our crit chance is pretty low, but that's just how OP Secrets of Suffering is. So you can see even a 10 brittle, which is absolutely nothing, right? Even 5 brittle makes you 8 brittle, and this is pretty much, you would always have this amount. So you can see why getting crit capped, like without it, you wouldn't even be close to crit cap, but with it, you would be crit capped. And that's just how it is. And that's why it's so OP. So that's why we forego the, what's it called, the freeze and stuff and try to get that. But hopefully this explains the whole tree. I do know that a lot of people don't really understand why I took this route. And this should clear some of the confusion up. And it's not like Marauder start is that bad. It does give you an access to an extra jewel slot. And it gives you some life. I mean, one can argue that obviously Raider would be better, as you would just lose his entire chunk of the tree. And you'd probably be able to get another cluster here. But you're pretty much just sacrificing some travel points to go over here, right? So I hope that me taking you through this build in this preliminary stage helps you understand how I built the character. Right now, it's all about conversion for why it does so much damage. You can see here in the calcs. So how it works is that all the fizz is converted over to lightning. So you can see here, lightning, wait, where is the damage? So here you can see 25, 25, 25, 25 from the clusters. And then lightning, 48, 48, 96 is converted to cold. And then 50% is converted to fire. So because half our damage is cold, half our damage is fire, we get brittle and scorch. And that allows us to cap our crit. And at every single point of this conversion chain, you can see that we gain 50% as chaos because of Eternity Shroud. So 50% here, and then 50% here. And then what that means is that we get an insane amount of chaos damage, so that most of our damage is actually chaos. And then because we're wearing all shaped items, we actually ignore enemy monster chaos res. And then also when we have Withering Step, we can put on Wither debuffs on the enemies, and that actually helps us out. So basically that's the general gist of the build, and we are going to have elusive, and it also gets elusive effect. So you can see the move speed is like 223%, and I will try to get the move speed higher. Maybe medium clusters can solve that, but this is pretty innovative build. I haven't really seen many people do this, and I do think that it will be actually good. I will play some bossing clips and some mapping. I mean, you saw the mapping at the start. It's not really insane at the moment, but the bossing should show you the damage will be there. It will be a near 100 million DPS build by the end of it, I think. Or I hope so if I have enough currency. And if you think about it, the amount of currency you need for the build and what I have is incredibly low to what an Int-Stacking Wander with this amount of damage would be. You would have to get like +1 power charge rings, +1 power charge shield, and all sorts of that. Or not +1 power charge shield, because you would have a Aziri's what's it called, reflection. So yeah, pretty good build. I think it has a lot of potential and should be pretty fun to try out. But I hope you enjoy the bossing clips, and it will convince you that this build is not just a meme that I made up.
Choppers, better took those risks. One of my fists, we fire starters. One of them a million will reach those heights. Always get a feeling that I won't deny that work. Never could toss. Look at my eyes, I'm on the rocks.
This is another so you saw all of the bossing clips, right? And the damage is pretty good. Well, you could actually get the damage even higher if you use Hydra Spear, put it at behind the enemy, and then the projectiles will return to you. And yeah, this is actually pretty good for clear too, probably for KB. So I'm gonna test this out. Wand Slinger might be worse than this because this is pretty much double damage for single target if you put the Hydro Spear in the right place. So I do think the build has some insane potential, and you could probably one-shot Maven instantly with this. So it'll be nice to see what the clips look like, because the clips already look like pretty good, and I do think the build has potential, and I do think it unlocks playing a Wander for a lot of people for a lower budget level, because most people, when they want to try Int-Stacking Wander, we're talking about mirrors and like hundreds and hundreds of exalts rather than like 80 to 100x, right? So hope you follow along with me in this journey. I do try to stream every day on Twitch, and yeah, it's been a blast trying out this build, and I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do, and see you next time. Bye.